In Dongguk University, and it's a very great honor to have a presentation in front of a venerable Professor Dhammajyoti, and again actually, yeah. And then my topic today is revisiting the Dipavamsa through a new Burmese manuscript. So actually, it was supposed to be delivered with Professor Andrew Skilton in Oxford, but unfortunately he's not here. So that's why I just put his name in the very first screen. So since 2020, we just started to reinterpret and re-scrutinize the text Dipavamsa. And then during that research, we found a scholar whose name is Dr. Tilman Frasch, and he is a specialist in Burmese tradition and history and then manuscript. So he published one very interesting article here. I'm sure it's not, you can see that. The title is Notes on Dipavamsa. So according to this very interesting article, he gives us brought several assumptions like that. So according to him, there's an unknown recension of the Dipavamsa in Burmese tradition. Then one of them is embedded in John Ryland Library in Manchester University. So he concludes that it was independent textual tradition from the one Odenberg used in 19th century. Then in his article he mentioned like this: as a detailed scrutinization of the manuscript is still under preparation, and he introduced us very interesting but which is not found in Pali Text Society version. Is a Dutio Hesati Sangato Tayo Dubisata Wasani. But he just mentioned like this, and then he has not published any more further research on this topic. So we just visited with Andrew. We just visited John Ryland Library. Looks like a castle, and then we found, this manuscript is Dipavamsa. The thing is, it's quite interesting because you see the title Dipavamsa is put here, and the two stickers are there. So I think maybe John Ryland Library considered that this hardcover is the very first page, but as we scrutinize this manuscript, this cover is the very last page. So it implies that maybe this manuscript has not analyzed so far in detail or in academically like that. So it's the very first two folios, and then it's the last folio which includes the colophon. If you look into the detail, it is very well preserved. So kindly the librarian sent us a very high quality archive, 150 megabytes each folio, TIFF file when we complained. And then Andrew made this Akshara table for me to educate, how to read the Burmese script like that. So thanks to this table and his education for me, relatively in short time, I could join this project together. So, firstly, we made sense that at least 3 scribes joined in this work. So, first scribe made the title. The second scribe made a huge amount of main text. And then last scribe made just a small colophon. So you see, it's exactly the same letter, but very different writing styles here. So, based on this very basic understanding, actually the thing that I'm going to deliver today is very just small stuff because it's just ongoing research. So, but yeah, I think it's small, but it's quite interesting and important, I think. So firstly, let me share our analysis of colophon here. So, if you look at the catalog of manuscript catalog in John Ryland Library, Jaya Vikrama mentioned like this: this text was edited in Roman characters by Hermann Odenberg, 1879 here. So, if you come to this colophon of our manuscript here, it could be translated like this: Saka Raj 1259 Ku Tapui 12 Lachan 13 Lak Mu Umha Reku where or something. It's unclear though. Then 1898 Ku Pepavari La for rock, like this. So in order to understand this colophon, we also found one also very helpful article. It's written by Heinz Braun. It's a colophons of Burmese Manuscript. So we found very interesting and important information from this article. So Sakaraj, Ku, La, Rock, like this information. So being based on this information, we analyzed this colophon like this. Sakaraj 1259 Ku refers to Sakaraj era 1259. And then Tapudwe is a Tapudwe, the 11th month of the Burmese year. Lat month, Chan is Wokshin fortnight, and the 13th Rak is the 13th day, and the Mu is the abbreviation of Mula in Pali, so it's the original text. And the Mha is the ablative suffix, so it refers to just from or something like that. Leku is to copy or to transcribe. And the Lve is still unclear. Yeah. And then 1898 Ku is a Gregorian year, 1898. And Pepavari is just sound of February. La month for rock to the fourth day. So it comes to understand, even though some part of it is unclear still so far, but we could understand like this. Somebody set this down from the original text on 13th day of the Wokshin fortnight of Tapudwe in Sakaraj era 1259, and which means that it was copied on the 4th day of the month, February 1898. So please have a look at this one, February 1898. If we come back to the first edition of Dipavamsa, published by Polytech Society, it was published in 1879, and then my Burmese manuscript in John Island Library was copied in 1898. So chronologically, it was made later than the first edition of Dipavamsa. Then, furthermore, Odenberg, in his introduction, he mentioned that he used 11 manuscripts scattered in Sri Lanka at that time. So he put siglars like F, N, G, A, B, etc. Then he mentioned that these all of 11 manuscripts were from the same original source, and then he put the name Burmese archetype. But unfortunately, it was very incorrectly written in Burmese characters. So he concludes that it might blunder common to 11 manuscripts like that. So as you see, Odenberg already noticed that his first work is very fragile, very fragile. Oh, as you see, Odenberg never mentioned about this Manchester manuscript in his introduction. Yeah. So, this phrase, this text was edited in Roman characters by Herman Odenberg, 1879. Of course, this is true because Jaya Vikrama mentions this text, but it should be noted that, but not this manuscript. Just the text itself was published and edited in 1879, but it does not guarantee that this manuscript has been scrutinized in academic field. So, it's a first information. The second one, being based on our kind of assumption, we compare just a small part of the Dipavamsa between Polytech Society's version to Burmese manuscript. Still I 10 minutes, right? So, if you come to the Lamotte, at the end of Lamotte, in his book, History of Indian Buddhism, he mentioned like this. However, one passage which we would like to think of as corrupt in the Dipavamsa locates the same event in 118 after the Nirvana. And Buddhadhamsa, in his Atta Salini, comes down in favor of the year 218 after the Nirvana. As you shall see, after 5 minutes, I just want to rephrase this phrase, like, however, one passage which we would like to think of as corrupt in the first edition of Dipavamsa, edited by Herman Oldenburg in 19th century. Not just text itself. It's my conclusion actually. So let's get back to these two problematic verses here. So anupada parinipai suryo atangato yata. So parinipute chatuma sesati patama sangaho. The tato parang vasasate wasani atarasanicha. Tatio sangavuti pavata taya sasana. Here. So Oldenburg translated these two verses like it's broken. I shall reach complete Parinibbana like the setting sun. And then 4 months after my death, my Parinibbana, the first convocation will be held. And then 118 years later, the third convocation will take place for the sake of the propagation of the faith. If we understand this, if we rely on these understandings, actually, this Lamot's understanding of Lamot is right. But if we compare these two verses to our Manchester manuscript, there's something different. So first verse, verse number 24 in PTS version, is divided into two different verses in Burmese manuscript. And then the other two, 4 padas, is also divided into 4 different places in the Burmese manuscript. And then our Burmese manuscript has a wholly new 2 padas, which are not found in the Pali Text Society. So you see, it's broken. Well, it should be here, okay? So first 2 pada come to the first 2 different padas of the Burmese manuscript, and then third and fourth pada come to the first and second pada of the verse number 26. And it's also broken. So and then first 2 pada come to the third and the fourth pada in Burmese manuscript, and the last 2 pada come to the other verse. And then this Burmese manuscript has 2 wholly different padas, which are not found in the Pali Text Society. So let me scrutinize this Burmese manuscript here. It could be transliterated like Anupada Parinippain Suryo Attan Kamitto Yata. So this green colored verses is in Herman Oldenburg, the Pali Text Society's version. So you see, we could find a little bit different stuff here. So let me compare. The first difference is Parinippain versus Parinippai. But in my opinion, as far as I understand, this Burmese manuscript should be amended, because Parinippain is nonsense. It's no meaning here. So it should be amended like Parinippai, just like that of Pali Text Society, because it should be like one who got Parinibbana, like that. So it should be masculine singular nominative here. Then second one is Attan Kamito versus Attan Gato here. So firstly, we could make sense that Burmese manuscript really just prefer the homogonic nature rather than that of Pali Text Society's version. And then Kamita and Gata. Well, in the case, of course, if you get the Sanskrit, in the context of Sanskrit, Kamita has a little bit different meaning. But here, I think Kamita and Gata is exactly the same. It's just different form of past participle here. So Kamita Gata is just, my opinion, is just for meta problem. That's all. So I understood these 2 verses like this. Anupada. Well, actually, last night I checked the book that Venerable Professor Dhamajyoti gave me yesterday, the Pali textbook, and I made sense that I got a little bit error here. So according to his book, Anupada is not clinging, right? But at the time, when I made this screen, I just understood like Anupada refers to not taking any for the fuel. So I understood like not taking any for the fuel for the further lives or next lives or something like that. So I understood like giving up the physical body. Parinippai, they will be the one who gets Parinibbana, and then yata, just like suryo, the sun. Atangamito, that has a set. I'm just like this. So, Burmese manuscript, Burmese verse number 25 refers to delivers like a very neat description of the Parinibbana of the Buddha. So, and then second verse, be translated literally like Pari Buddhe Chatumase, Patamo Hesati Sangaho. Yes. Yeah, almost same to the Pali text society. And Tato Parang Wasasate to Diohesati Sangha. It has some problem here. So if you compare the first difference is a Patamo Hesati Sangha in Burmese and a Hesati Patama Sangha in PTS. Actually, it is a different reading, but actually the meaning is exactly the same. So there will be the first council, Patamo Hesati Sanghaho, or Hesati Patama Sangha, which is exactly the same meaning here. So it has no problem, I think. But the problem is the second difference here. Tuttiu Hesati Sanghaho in Burmese and Wassani Atarasani in PTS. So in the case of a Burmese manuscript, it refers to like just there will be the second council. It describes about the second council. But in the case of Pali Text Society's version, it mentions just chronological information here. So it mentions just 18 years, 118 years. It's big difference here. So we translated it like, during the 4th month after the final release, namely the Parinibbana of the Buddha, there will be the first council. And then 100 years after that, there will be the second council. So in the Burmese manuscript, verse number 26 also conveys a very neat and very clear understanding about first two convocations, first two councils like this. It is quite different from that of Pali Text Society's version here. Then it's the last verse. So Tato Dvisata Wasani, Wasana Tarasani cha here. As I've already mentioned, these two padas are not found in the Pali Text Society's version. And then last two verses, Tatio Sangaho Hoti, Bhavata Taya Sasana. It's almost the same. I mean, actually, exactly the same as that of the Pali Text Society. If we compare that, firstly, Burmese manuscript has a wholly new sentence, which is not found, never found in the Pali Text Society version. And then Sangaho is a second difference, but yeah, as I've already mentioned, Burmese manuscript just prefer the homogenic nature, so it does not have a deep meaning here. So, if we follow just the understanding of Burmese manuscript, here the last verse could be understood like 218 years after the Buddha's death, Buddha's Parinibbana, there will be the third council for the promotion of the teaching. So it's very neat information about the third council also, right? And then, if we compare this understanding to Atasalini, the problematic phrase that Etienne Lamotte mentioned here, Mama Parinibbana to Attarasa, etc. At the end of 218 years after the Buddha's death, a monk, Mokkali Buddhadissa, held the third council. So we could notice that these two texts, these two texts share the same historical perspectives about three councils here. So if you come back to the Etienne Lamotte here, however, one passage which we would like to think of as corrupt in the Dipavamsa, as I've already mentioned, it should be rephrased like in the very first edition of Dipavamsa, edited by Thomas Oldenberg, even in 19th century. Okay? So it's my summary. Burmese manuscript, even it is just ongoing research though, we found that it has 3 different scribes at least, and then it was copied in February 1898. And then it was very different from the 11 manuscripts that Oldenberg used. So, furthermore, it shares, different from the understanding of Lamotte, it shares the same chronological perspectives with the other commentarial texts. So it's my conclusion. this conclusion is quite small because it's just an ongoing research, but I'm sure it would be quite broader in near future. So there were differences from what has been known about the text Dipavamsa, because usually Western scholars regard this text Dipavamsa as just broken or as corrupt like that. But if we compare